Hey guys, Miss McKenna here. As you know, I am on a field trip, so I thought I'd make this quick video to give you some instructions for what I'd like you to do in class today. And you guys will be starting a literary analysis essay over one of the four short stories that we've read in class. And I just have up here first this screen from Schoology, where you'll see that there is a folder called Literary Analysis Essay Short Stories. And every document that you're going to need for this literary analysis will be placed into this folder, if not today, throughout the writing process. So let's go ahead and go through some of the documents that you need to complete today. And I've got those pulled up in Word that you guys can see, and they'll be placed into this folder later today. So the first thing that you guys need to look at is this writing process document. Everyone will have access to this in Schoology. If you click on the document, which like I said, it'll be in that folder, you can download it. I will have it up there for you. Go ahead and download that. You can edit this document to use and record for your writing process. And I will be checking for this later when you turn in your essay. So this writing process sheet, for today's purposes, you'll need to put your name in the block that you're in my class, and you'll fill out number 1. I began the writing process on, and you'll put September 22nd, 2016. So please have this writing process document started today. Have it downloaded so that I know you guys have at least started that beginning process. The next document that we're going to look at is what a literary analysis is. So that is this next document here that you're going to see in that folder in Schoology. Again, put your name and block here, and I'm going to explain to you what a literary analysis paper is. And the paragraph there you can see says a literary analysis paper discusses the text, so you're going to choose which story, in combination with one or more of the following literary terms. For our literary analysis, you guys are going to choose 3 terms for which to discuss, and you will provide evidence and explanation to prove your thesis statement for those 3 terms. So here are the possibilities. For any one of the stories, you guys could choose any one of these little categories. You'll see are all left aligned. Or you could choose to pick a bigger category like characters, and you could go in and choose a subcategory. For instance, characterization, you might choose to look at the protagonist, the antagonist, and a foil. You may choose in plot that you want to focus on foreshadowing and suspense, or the exposition and how the background information is used to really set up the story. So what I would suggest is that you look through and think about first, which one of the 4 stories do you want to focus on? Would you like to write your paper over The Most Dangerous Game? Do you want to write it over All Summer in a Day? Do you want to write it over The Bass, the River, and Sheila Mant? Or do you want to write your paper over The Landlady? And most of you are probably going to choose the story that you enjoyed the most, or the one that you feel like has the most amount of literary terms and elements used in it to make it a great story. And then you're going to start thinking, okay, so for instance, if I choose All Summer in a Day, I'm going to talk maybe about the protagonist versus the antagonist, because it's pretty clear that we have a protagonist, the person who the story follows, in Margot. And it's pretty clear that the antagonists for Margot are going to be the other students in class who treat her poorly and lock her up in the closet. And you're going to find evidence from the text, the piece, All Summer in a Day, to write about in your literary analysis. You may also decide that you're going to talk a little bit about the setting in All Summer in a Day. It takes place on Venus with people who many of which have never been to the Earth. It's cold and it's rainy and it's depressing there. At least that's what we infer. People are not particularly happy in the beginning. So you may talk about how that adds to the story. And then finally, you may decide that you're going to talk about language and style. And this would be things like diction and syntax. And for diction, we even specifically went through in All Summer in a Day many of the choices of words that the author used to tell us what the tone is in their piece. So, for instance, in the beginning, we know that the tone was pretty aggressive. In the middle, we know the kids were very happy and they were very joyful and they said things that told us that. And at the end, they were embarrassed and they felt some guilt over the way that they treated Margot. So you may decide that you want to focus on that. Once you have decided which of the literary terms you're going to do, I would maybe jot down on your paper here which ones and maybe some ideas that you would like to. And you're going to start finding quotes. Now, for each one of the 3 literary terms that you choose to focus on, you're going to have to include at least 2 quotes in your literary analysis essay. That means that you're going to have a total of 6 pieces of textual evidence or 6 quotes from the story that you include, 2 for your first term, 2 for your second term, and 2 for your third term. When you've done that, the next thing I want you to do is begin looking at your introduction. But before I completely start talking about the introduction, I'm going to go over here to this assignment sheet so you can see what this essay is going to be worth in the gradebook. So if you go here to the assignment sheet, which again will also be in that folder, you can see that this information here tells you that the aim of this essay is to develop and strengthen your writing and to use in-depth observations of a short story to do that writing. You are going to explore a question, which is going to be your thesis statement, and you're going to create a well-written, meaningful piece allowing you to further explore your intellectual curiosity. So you're going to ask a question or pose a statement, and then you're going to prove it. You may do any of the 4 stories that I've listed here and mentioned previously. And here's how you'll be scored. The pre-writing, the drafting, the editing and revision, and the publishing, all of which you'll see on this writing process record, are going to be graded for a total of 50 points from all of those items. In addition to that, I'll also be looking at your essay, and I'll be using the standard Park Hill writing rubric for argumentative writing, which gives you 20 points in the statement or purpose and focus section. That's your thesis statement and your introduction. Your organization is everything sensical. Have you used a good flow? Your evidence, have you included the pieces of textual evidence as I've asked you to? And have you elaborated on that? Your language and vocabulary, have you used academic and intelligent language that shows that you have a good understanding of an essay and how it should sound in an academic environment? And finally, your conventions. And we will be going back and doing editing and revising in conventions and language and vocabulary. We'll also be doing conferencing, so you'll be able to see some help in all of these areas so you can earn as many as those 100 points possible as you'd like. So that's going to be the rubric. So going back to the what is a literary analysis sheet, what I want you to do today, after you choose your story, okay, after you go through this whole part, choose your story, find the 3 literary terms that you would like to use, and even start thinking about the textual evidence, which I asked you to write here. You're going to begin your introduction. Now, your introduction has 4 parts, which I've listed here. I would like for you to start with an attention getter, which is going to open up and sort of begin the story. It may be an anecdote, it may be a quote in addition to the 6 that you pull from the story, another quote from the text. It might be an interesting fact or a statistic, something that's going to help create an interest for the reader. You're going to start with the title of the work or the author and the author and setting, a brief summary of the work, which should only be 2 to 3 sentences long, and then finally a thesis statement, which I will approve when I see you on Monday. These things need to be done on Monday so that I can look through your introduction and begin giving you pointers on that introduction so that you can move forward the rest of your writing process. Now, something else that I've done is put into the folder a literary analysis example that Miss Grider, formerly Miss Malone, allowed me to borrow so that I could show you guys what an essay might look like in completion. So I'd like for you guys to look through this essay, and I'm going to show you just a few things that I think are important to notice. You'll see this essay, first of all, set up in MLA format, okay? And it has a title, and you'll see the introduction here. So the introduction starts off, how would you feel if you made a life-changing decision in an instant that you could never get back? That's my attention getter. The Bass, the River, and Sheila Mant is by W.D. Weatherall and is set mainly on the river. So if you look over here at what you should be doing today, attention getter, title of author, title of work, author, and setting. They've already accomplished those two things. The story was about the narrator who likes a girl named Sheila Mant. But Sheila is not the nicest person, and the narrator was invisible to her until one day when they went on his canoe together. The narrator had a passion for fishing, but Sheila had her own thoughts. He happened to catch a big bass while being on the boat with Sheila, and he chose Sheila despite her negative outlook on the bass. There's your brief introduction. You'll notice right here to right here is the brief introduction and summary of the story. It does not need to be long. In fact, should only be 2 to 3 sentences. Now, here's the really important part. The author of this essay has included their thesis statement. Now, this one is not exactly what I'm looking for, but I want you guys to see that they have provided a guiding statement. Irony is the most important element here in this story because releasing the bass to gain Sheila's affection ultimately lost him both. And the author is going to go on to prove all of the ways that the narrator lost Sheila. Now, what I want you guys to do is to pick a statement that creates a goal in mind. So you're going to write something along the lines of, what I have here. So you'll notice that I still kind of started off my paper the way that I want, but here's 2 different thesis examples that I would like you to model your thesis statement off of. So in the first one, this uses literary terms to look at theme. So for instance, this story, and we didn't read it, but it gives you a good idea. In Moby Dick, the author shows the hatred that Captain Ahab has for Moby Dick. That's the theme. This captain hates this whale, and we're going to prove this statement in yellow. This is what we're going to prove. We're going to do that through showing the examples the author uses of diction, imagery, and symbolism. So the author uses specific words, specific images, and symbols to show the hatred of Captain Ahab of this whale. That's one way to write the thesis statement. The second way to write the thesis statement would be to use one literary term and 3 broad examples of that term. So the next one, we also didn't read this story, but it's a good example. So in Death by Scrabble, there are many examples of irony, kind of looking like the one I just went over with you, including, and now I'm going to give you 3 broad examples: the game controlling the fate of the players, the man thinking that the word he spells will affect the outcome of the game, and the man trying to kill his wife but dying himself. So in this particular example, I've shown you that I'm going to prove irony is the biggest and best example in Death by Scrabble as far as literary terms go. And here are 3 broad ways that it is. And then what I'm going to do after I finish my introduction, so you guys are going to do that today in the introduction, my paper is going to be about these 3 broad examples, but I'm going to give you specifics to help you show you that these 3 broad examples can be proven. So today, just to recap, you need to choose the story of the 4 we've read that you want to write about. You need to choose 3 literary elements that you want to use and prove in your paper. You need to come up with some examples from the text of those 3 literary elements that you choose. And then you need to begin your introduction with an attention getter, a title of a work, author and setting, a brief summary, and a thesis statement that I can then approve. I expect you to work hard and to do the best that you can, working diligently today, because if you choose not to get everything completed that I've asked you to, you will be behind on Monday when I come back. So you really need to make sure that you're trying your hardest to get something prepared and complete all of the pieces so that we can move forward. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend and do your best.